Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 and come at you with another review. And this time it's actually about a good movie. This was not a request, this is one I've scrolled past on Netflix several times. Didn't really know a lot about it. Finally decided to watch it. That's 2017's The Ritual, which is based on the book by the same name by Adam Neville, directed by David Bruckner, which that sound he co-directed The Signal, and he co-wrote and directed the Amateur Night segment in VHS, which VHS I wasn't a fan of. I'll get to that in October with my anthology marathon. But it stars Rafe Spall, who I've seen in a couple films. He was in Shaun of the Dead. He was the young cart pusher, the first one to say got red on you. He was also in a really good movie, not a horror film, but The Big Short. It was Christian Bale. Arshur Ali, Robert James Collier, and Sam Troughton. Which these all sound familiar, but I don't think I've really seen anything they've been in. That's really our cast, those four guys. It premiered at the Toronto Film Festival in September 2017, released in the UK theatrically Friday the 13th in October, and then it went straight to Netflix. It had a budget of 1.3 to 1.6 million. This is a British film. It takes place in Sweden, but they're all English. They speak English. And this was a really, really good movie. I liked this as much as I liked The Lodge, because it is supernatural. Basically, these four friends, they go out on a hiking trip out in Sweden, start experiencing some supernatural shit, all leads up to a big climax. And I mean, that's the really simplified synopsis, but I'm gonna get into spoilers eventually. But it's on Netflix, so I highly recommend this film because, like The Lodge, or it even reminded me a lot of The Witch, which I loved. That's one of my favorite films of the decade. I don't know if this would be classified as elevated horror. If it is, I can see why. I'll put it under my elevated playlist or intellectual smart horror, whatever. I kind of like elevated, so I go with that. It does feel like The Witch, although it's a lot shorter. A lot of times it reminded me of Blair Witch. I mean, with a little bit of story tweaking, this could have been 2016's Blair Witch. That piece of shit sequel, but it's a soft reboot. Yeah, that I love the original Blair Witch. Both sequels can suck my ass, but I mean, this does feel Blair Witchy, The Witchy. It really does. In fact, I think there was a 2011 film called The Ritual. I don't remember much. I just remember there's like a mask with nails and they hammer it on people's face. Ruin? I can't remember what it was called. I haven't seen it since back then. But, yeah, this movie, it doesn't really have jump scares. At least not as cheap as in like your regular horror film. This movie relies heavily on atmosphere. The atmosphere is so dense and well done. I guess the European woods looks a lot like New England, because growing up in the woods in Maine, this was very familiar to me. Same kind of trees, just rows and rows of whatever kind of trees those are. They're not pine trees. Yes, we have those. But the atmosphere is so dense, and the cinematography within the woods is very well done. Perfect build of tension and dread, paranoia, anxiety. It's like not as strong as, say, The Thing, but it's along those lines, because it's not so much not being able to trust each other, it's just like Blair Witch. How do we get out of this situation? Something bad is coming. There's something bad after us. We don't know where we are. We don't know where we're going. And the four actors do a great job, especially Rafe Spall as the lead. He has a great character arc, which I'll get into. So just all those elements, which is why I think if it's not, it should be considered elevated horror, because it doesn't rely on jump scares. There is some grisly images, but it doesn't rely on blood and gore. It doesn't rely on the popcorn scares. It relies more on... It does move at a slow pace. It is a slow film. But at an hour, 34 minutes, it's not like it's too slow. It's not like it... You don't ever really have that, okay, let's get to it kind of feeling. It doesn't wear out its welcome. It takes its time for the characters to develop the scares and the tension and the dread to build, all within a beautifully shot, dreary, bleak atmosphere of the creepy ass woods. Because I grew up in the woods. Woods are fucking creepy. So with that, I'll probably get into spoilers, because I'll go over the plot. Oh, and also, this is a monster movie. It's supernatural, but there is a monster. I'm not going to say right away what it looks like or what kind of monster it is. It is sort of semi-related to Lovecraft. It's not a Lovecraft movie. It's not really a Lovecraftian monster. It is more so because Sweden is in Scandinavia, so it's more Scandinavian Norse mythology. But a very interesting looking monster. So it is a monster movie. It doesn't show it until the very end. Even the little hints it gives you is way off in the background. You'll probably miss it. So it's got like Lovecraft, it's got Norse mythology. It is a monster film. Also sort of a cult film. But there is some CGI. Whether it be with the monster or what little bit of blood is there. But, and as much of a stickler as I am for CGI, this movie is so strong and rich in pretty much all of its aspects as far as building a horror movie that I can forgive the CGI. And I really liked the look of the monster, because the monster was built up, and then we finally see it. Yeah, it's pretty creepy looking, pretty awesome looking. So it's on Netflix. I definitely recommend it. Even if you have low patience, stick with it, because it is much better than your regular popcorn film. This is better than 80% of the Blumhouse films I've seen, or even Lionsgate. So spoilers starting now. So the film opens up with our 5 friends. Luke, Dom. Okay, Luke is Rafe Spall, our lead. Then we have Phil. Then we have Hutch, who's sort of the peacemaker, the stronger guy. Then Robert James Collier, and then Sam Troughton plays Dom, who is essentially, he's Richard Dreyfuss. He's kind of the Richard Dreyfuss character. He's the one with glasses. He's the neurotic one. and they're all hanging out with their friend Rob, and he talks about going hiking in Sweden, and they're all just like, ah. So then Luke and Rob go to a liquor store where there's a robbery in progress, and the thieves are making Rob take off his wedding ring. He's reluctant, he refuses, so he gets shot. No, he did get shot. He did get killed, but I don't think. No, well, it said his skull was smashed. I think they hit him with something. I don't remember. But, and Luke didn't intervene. And so he feels guilty. He carries that baggage with him. And that's the beginning of his arc. Some months later, they get together and they decide to do the hike in his honor. Uh, I believe it was Luke decided that while they're hiking, is 6 months later, and well, first Dom hurts his knee, and then Hutch decides that why don't they cut through the woods instead of taking the long trail. They come across some weird shit, like they see an elk hung up in the trees, all splayed out, disemboweled, intestines out. Grizzly, we get grisly stuff as far as aftermath, not really seeing it happen. So they see that, then there's this torrential downpour, they find this creepy abandoned cabin. They decide to go in, start a fire. One of them goes upstairs and there's like this really weird, I don't know if it could be called wicker, but it's made out of sticks, like from here down of a person with their arms up like this, and then branches on their hands. And then the waist down, it looks more like arms. And I think it had chicken feet or something for hands, and there's no head. So immediately they think it's witchcraft, and then there's these symbols all over. There were symbols all over the trees outside, inside the cabin. There's like little like medallions hanging of the symbols. That night, they all have nightmares. We see Luke's, and I like how the nightmares were done. Way more than the Elm Street remake. He opens the door to go outside, and he's in the convenience store, or the liquor store, but the ground is still woods. So I liked that. He sees the robbery happen, almost out of body. And then when he wakes up, everyone else has had a nightmare. Hutch has pissed himself. Dom is freaking out. And the other guy is praying to the Wicker Man upstairs. Again, everything is very well shot. It's very dark, but it's shot well. They leave first thing in the morning, and tensions are just high. They don't know what to do. They don't know where they are. Dom and Luke get into it about how Rob's death was Luke's fault. Luke decides to run up the ridge to see if he can overlook the area, see a direction, but when he gets up there, it's all flat. The jump scares is like the roar and scream of the monster, and you'll see, like, if this is a tree, you'll kind of see like a hand, but it's off in the distance and you don't really see it, but it is like a technically it's a jump scare, but I forgive it because it's not in your face and you can still kind of miss it. Just a little like hand around a tree. Also, the nightmares. Yeah, it's a dream fake out sequence, which I've shit on, but they've all been experiencing nightmares as part of the supernatural. I don't know, it felt more necessary than in take your pick of another film that's come out recently. They decide to set up camp because Dom's knee is getting worse. Oh, also when Luke wakes up, he has like these 4 or 5 like circular stab wounds in his chest, but he doesn't know what they came from. Uh, so that they just set up camp. Luke has yet another nightmare. But then when he wakes up, one of the other guys, he's naked and kneeling down, supposedly to the god, this entity, because they do talk a little bit about mythology and stuff like that, witchcraft. And Hutch's tent has been ripped open with blood in it. They decide to go look for him, and they find him, like the elk, up in a tree, splayed out, intestines on the ground. They do take him down. Well, actually, before that, they find a tent buried in the dirt, and there's like a shoe and a wallet. I was thinking about the Goonies. I think I said to myself, Chester Copperpot. And the friend that was kneeling gets dragged away. We hear the roaring. A good sound of the roar and the screams of the monster. It doesn't sound like other ones. Luke and Dom start running, and they come across this torchlit path. They end up in this cabin. They're tied up. There's these really dirty, sort of plucked out of time worshippers. They give Luke some water, but not Dom. You get. I'm going back, so I want to get the finer details. Dom is taken but brought back, and they're pretty much saying how they're going to sacrifice him. And that's when this woman describes that the monster is a Jotun. A Jotun, which is a giant, is a bastard son of Loki. And if they give him a sacrifice, he will give them freedom of pain and immortality. The look of the monster is more like how do you pronounce that? I want to get the name of the mon. I'll just keep talking. Dom eventually does get sacrificed, and that's when we do see the look of the monster. And I don't really know how to... So what the monster is derives more from Norse mythology, but it kind of looks more like the Shub-Niggurath, which is a Lovecraftian monster, also known as Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young. Imagine a giant-ass goat with the spine, each vertebrae sticking out like branches, but the head... Okay, so the head is like the sitting Wicker Man from the cabin. The head is the waist up, the body of a person, no head, but the arms are like this. It goes out into antlers. The bottom half of the head, the waist down, is like, or it's still the waist up, but like reverse. So its arms are dangling. It looks like a cloaked figure, so that the cloak sort of hangs. And there's like a, sort of like where the nose of the goat would be. It's like the hood of the figure. It is just black with beady eyes, like the whatever junk collectors from Star Wars. but it can move its arms. That's how it feels, but it's very, very tall. A very interesting look for the monster. And it does because Luke sets fire to that cabin, and he starts running through the woods, and the monster does catch up to him, make him bow down and worship him, but he refuses. And he did incapacitate the monster for a short second by which the monster does kill one of the followers because he gets enraged by the interruption of the ritual, even though Dom was sacrificed. Uh, he he can also like send hallucinations into Luke's head about Rob's death, trying to get him to bow down, but he won't. But eventually, while it's right in front of him, he strikes it with an axe, and then he's able to run out of the woods. And there's this big open field, but the monster is, uh, you know, confined to the woods, can't get to him. So Luke screams, and roars back at him, then walks towards the road. That's the end of the movie. This, at first, like halfway through, I was just like, no, 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 don't do this. Do not fucking do this. Do not pull a Hereditary on me. Start going towards. I figured Cult was gonna have something to do with it because it's called The Ritual. But I was like, don't go the Hereditary route. Don't fuck me on this. You've already done so well, like Hereditary did. This movie is incredibly rich in atmosphere. I mean, you feel the dampness of the woods. You feel the isolation. It just, you look at the background, even though it's out of focus, you can just tell it goes on forever of just woods. It does a great job with the build of tension and anxiety and dread. You see the collapse of keeping the friends keeping it cool. The arc of Luke, I mean, you can't blame him, but I guess being a coward is how he feels and how his friends kind of see him about Rob's death, and eventually standing up to this giant monster. Not really defeating it, but ultimately winning, getting away. The the dream sequences, they didn't feel like fake outs either. It felt like, okay, this is a dream. It didn't really fake us out. I meant to say that earlier. And they felt more necessary. The jump scares, really none at all. Except for when we catch glimpses of that creature, behind trees or whatever. They're earned. That's another thing about jump scares. This movie was so well done with atmosphere and dread, intention, that it earned those jump scares. And building the monster up that much, it's easy to be disappointed by the look of it. I thought it was interesting as hell. I thought it was a really neat, well pulled off with the CGI and for its budget. So don't ever let someone say, it's one of those low budget, cheesy films. This is low budget and it looks fucking amazing. And I mean, it had a good ending. It's he got away, but some people say, well, he should have killed the monster. It's like, well, he was able to triumph over it. He showed the monster that he beat it. That's why he was screaming back at it. He didn't just kill it. He outsmarted or defeated. He defied it, which is I think more of a heroic kind of route for him, especially for the arc of his character. I thought this was so well made for its budget, and again with this atmosphere. I put this up there with The Lodge I'd put it up there with The Witch. Not quite as good, but almost as good. But it did have a lot of witch, Blair Witch, had all the good elements of those films. Really made it its own. I I really liked The Ritual. I thought this was a very good movie. And I want to see more like this. I really like this elevated, more emotional, tension-filled horror film. I really like The Ritual. This has gone on a bit too long, but thank you for watching.